All right, folks, it is 6:30 on the dot. So at this time, I'd like to call this meeting of the Town of Mills River Planning Board to order. If you'll please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so you have in front of you the agenda for this evening. Are there any adjustments or additions that anyone needs or would like to make?
Yeah, I realize I didn't give a speaker, so forgive me.
Oh. All right, we'll pause for just a moment. There's no such thing as too much room, Marley.
No additions.
Okay, so moving on through the agenda, each of you received an electronic copy of the minutes from our meeting on December the 7th. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes if there are no changes. I have a motion to approve, a second? I have a second by Mr. Moore. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, those minutes pass unanimously. And do we have any public comment for this evening?
I have one general public comment that was emailed in
Okay.
that I'll read to the board. And then I have a separate public comment emailed in association with the development, so I'll do that at a later time.
Okay.
Dear Mills River Planning Board members, this is from Karen Sells. I write to you in the hope that you might encourage the NCDOT to set a consistent 45-mile-per-hour speed limit on Boylston Highway inside the town of Mills River. In multiple studies over the course of decades, speed has been shown to be a key risk factor in road traffic injuries, influencing both the risk of road traffic crashes and the severity of injuries that result from them. Research has consistently shown that higher speeds lead to a greater risk of a crash and a greater probability of serious injury if one occurs. This is because as speed increases, so does the distance traveled during the driver's reaction time and the distance needed to stop. Also, as speed increases, the effects of driver's errors are magnified. In fact, a 5% increase in average speed has been shown to lead to an approximately 10% increase in injury related to accidents and a 20% increase in fatal crashes. Reducing the speed limit from 55 to 45 miles per hour represents a greater than 18% reduction and could be expected to result in a significant decrease in accidents and injuries, fatalities related to such accidents. It also sets a more consistent speed limit on a road that currently shifts frequently between 55 and 45 mile per hour speed limits. As Mills River Crossing and its associated Mills River Crossing South developments add more than 100 homes and their traffic to Boylston Highway in a section with the higher 55 mile per hour speed limit, I'm concerned that we will see increased accident frequency and severity if measures such as a reduced speed limit are not implemented. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Dr. Karen Sells.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Sells, if you're listening, for taking time to send that to us. Okay, so the additional comment will go to the section of our agenda that it is relevant to. We have no old business on the agenda, so we will shift right to new business. The first thing that we need to do this evening as we have talked about before in drafting the guidelines for the planning board, is we need to elect the chair and vice chair for the upcoming year. So we will start with election of the chair. So we will take nominations for that at this time.
I would nominate Sherry Hill.
Second.
Okay, so we have a nomination and we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so I guess I'll maintain this seat. Thank you for your confidence, folks. Okay, so moving on to vice chair, I will now take nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Jim. All of a sudden, I can't think of your last name, Jim.
Foster.
Foster, that's it.
Okay, so
Second.
Cheryl was the second on that. All in favor of Jim Foster maintaining his vice chair seat, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and that will pass
you very
unanimously
much.
as well. That was easy. Okay, at this time, we need to adopt our annual meeting schedule. Mike, did you want to address that at all? There is a copy, I think, in our handout of what has been proposed, I presume.
Yeah, so every year council adopts a meeting schedule for themselves and for all volunteer boards. So the meetings, the first Tuesday of each month, as we normally meet, are outlined here. Obviously, this board can cancel and rearrange meetings as it sees fit, but it's just for the schedule as proposed in front of you.
So just a quick question, in September, are they giving us that, even though the holiday doesn't fall on that day?
I did see that. I mean, that'd be the board's pleasure if they want to reschedule it for a different date in September.
But I mean, it's given as a holiday under the planning board, but there's not actually a holiday on that day. Labor Day is on a Monday, not a Tuesday.
Then that may be an error in the schedule. So I mean, if you're free to amend it.
What is the pleasure of the rest of the board for that one? I'm more inclined to leave that on the calendar, and then if we have no business, cancel it.
Talking about September.
In September, yes.
So include a September 6th meeting.
I mean, that's not, what is the holiday in September?
It's on the Monday,
The 5th.
Labor Day.
So if you wanted to do that, you could say you adopt the schedule with the addition of a meeting on September 6th.
So I would make the motion that we do adopt this schedule, adding that meeting on Tuesday, September the 6th. Do we have a second by Mr. Elliott? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will pass that with the addition of September the 6th. Okay, our next item of new business is the major subdivision application for the cottages at Roper Farm. So I'll let you, Mike, if you want to just give us a quick overview, and then we'll have comment and we'll let these gentlemen answer
Sure.
questions or speak.
And I did just want to say, we did add into your paper packets the subdivision plan checklist for major subdivisions. So that's in there, but that was not in your email packet. So feel free to take a look at that. So just running through this, in mid-November, we received a major residential subdivision application for the following property. It's in the 200 block of Banner Farm Road. And the proposals for a 32-lot, single-family residential subdivision served by a primary single private drive, Maverick Drive, off of Banner Farm Road. So the process for reviewing subdivisions is a review at the staff level, and then it goes before this planning board to ensure all town ordinances are met and it's conforming with all other town regulations. The current zoning is MR30 low density residential, which allows this type of development by right. As I always like to do, I like to highlight the Making Mills River 2040 comprehensive land use plan. It's particularly the land use vision map, which shows this property within the mixed residential district, and that lists desirable uses as single family residential, duplexes, parks and public space, and so on. So staff has reviewed this against all town codes and confirm everything's compliant with town standards. That includes City of Hendersonville water availability, septic system suitability based on the soil study, all building setbacks and minimum lot sizes for the MR30 zoning district, landscaping requirements, stream setbacks, watershed and impervious surface built upon area restrictions, and stormwater requirements, and all other subdivision ordinance requirements. The applicants also provided proof of submission for an erosion and sediment control permit and a section 404 permit with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for stream and wetland disturbances. So staff recommends approval with the conditions that the approved erosion and sediment control permit and the approved section 404 U.S. Army Corps of Engineer permit be provided before site work, along with the preliminary subdivision plat. I think when we did the Pardee commercial major subdivision, we had a subdivision plat to look at. It's not required in the town subdivision ordinances, but the applicant has said they will provide it shortly. And as long as it reflects the development plan, that would be satisfactory. That's my summary. I'm happy to take questions. The developers are here as well if you'd like them to speak. And I think I said earlier, I have one emailed public comment on this item.
Now it's turned on. Since I'm relatively new, I have a question about the interaction between Mills River, the approval process, and in this case, the county Board of Education, since we would be putting some additional, I assume, some additional stress on the nearby elementary school and subsequently middle school and high school. What is the interaction? Because Mills River would be committing to additional students. How does the process work to speak to the Board of Education or county commissioners, whoever would be appropriate?
I'll just be frank. I mean, there is none. Henderson County, being a county in North Carolina, all public education falls to them. You know, the county also has their own planning department that does growth projections, and they're in the middle of their comprehensive plan. I'll plug it now. If you go online, you can put your feedback in. But they do their own comprehensive plan as well that projects growth in different areas of the county, including in municipal areas like the town's jurisdiction. So long story short is I don't know what the Board of Education looks at specifically, but the county does have people that plan for this type of growth, and hopefully, you know, those projections take that into account in terms of increased student load in the schools. But I'm not aware of their processes, and we don't interact with them directly in terms of development review.
Mike, I have one comment, I guess you'd say. On this checklist, I see it says, do private roads meet minimum private road standards? I seem to remember somewhere along the line when we voted in an ordinance that said subdivisions, and I know mobile home parks had to be DOT standard. Am I right?
So the checklist here says, do the public roads meet the standards? Now, none of these roads are proposed to be public. They're all private, but the town does have private road standards based on the number of lots served, 1 to 3, 1 to 24, and then 25 and above. So this meets all those standards in our ordinance. Whether those standards are the same as the NCDOT road standards, I don't know that off the top of my head. I can research that for you if you'd like.
I wish you would, because I know we discussed that at length when we were talking about subdivision. I know when we were talking about revising the mobile home park thing, that we wanted to make sure the roads would be to NCDOT standards. So that's my question or comment.
So one of my questions, and this might be one that you guys can answer. Will there be a homeowners association or anything like that? Yes. Okay.
There will be one, and they've provided draft covenants for us. I just didn't include those in your packet, just for brevity's sake.
What about open space or other features like clubhouses or anything like that for this particular? Nothing like that.
So the general question, what do you anticipate the price range of these homes will be? No, that's on, do you have any idea what size square footage it would be?
Mike, has the fire department looked at the water plan at this point? I read something about the fire flow requirements may or may not
I have
meet
not,
those standards. And I don't know what the process is for the fire department having to look at that.
I haven't sent them plans for the fire hydrants. I believe it's the fire marshal that looks at that. Have you all applied with the fire marshal or you? Mhm. Yeah.
Right. I saw the that they've said the availability water. Have you also gotten the approval from them as well? Are you still waiting on that? The city of Hendersonville water supply? Okay, I thought that was the availability, not the approval. Gotcha. Gotcha.
And just summarizing what's in that letter, basically, they've approved allocation for 12,800 gallons per day, which is 80 gallons per minute for 32 single-family homes. There's an existing 16-inch water main across the street from the site on Banner Farm Road. And so this would require an 8-inch main extension into the site.
So the one of the things that I noted as I was reading, which you also noted in your staff notes, was that they're waiting for the approval of the erosion and sediment control permit.
I can
Okay.
speak to that. This is Jesse Hammond. I'm the civil engineer on the job. I talked with Fred Walker earlier today, and just because of the holiday season, we were catching back up, and he said it was going out either today or tomorrow morning. So we've gotten informal approval, I guess, but don't have the actual letter. But yeah, we've covered everything that Fred wanted us to, and we're just waiting on his letter to come through.
And the only thing the town requires per the subdivision ordinance is proof of submission.
Gotcha.
We would obviously require the permit, as I state in my recommendation, before, releasing them for
Right.
site work. But
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. What about the requirement for the 404 from the United States Army Corps of Engineers? Does that have to be just applied for, or does that have to be on
It's the
hand?
same, just
Same
proof of
process.
submission. They've already received a jurisdictional determination
Right.
of the wetlands and streams on the property, which is in your packet. They've applied for the 404 permit, and I assume we're just awaiting a response on that.
Okay.
If I read the packet correctly, I think the perk test and all the septic stuff looks good. Right. And I just have one other question. I think from reading the packet that the traffic study said that they probably didn't recommend or wouldn't recommend a turn lane down there. That's what they recommend. Do you have any plans, to maybe put in a turn lane?
DOT would have to approve that and their standards to requiring a turn lane are much higher than usually what the town sees. Now, one thing they've proposed is basically to have 100 feet of internal stacking on that main drive. So as cars are coming out, and if they're not able to turn left or right, they're able to stack inside the development and not block traffic.
Has NCDOT approved the traffic study? So we do have they sent the final determination letter yet? Is it approved by them? I mean, to me, it's not a deal breaker because it's sealed. An engineer has sealed the TIA, so I think we can accept it as a board. But that's always part of the DOT's driveway permit process, is to make sure that that's approved by them. So, okay. I know they approved the scope, so the DOT checklist.
Does anyone else have additional questions? Okay, well, if you don't have any other questions, I think we should entertain a motion if anyone would like to
I've
make
got
a
the-
motion. Oh,
sorry.
yep, I'm sorry.
Just the one.
Oh, we've got to
public
the comment as well.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Did you
Completely
all wanna make
forgot.
a statement, or you good? All right. Sorry, just didn't want to forget Lindsay Crawford. Hello, my name is Lindsay Crawford. I'm a native to Mills River. Over the years, watching all of the cookie cutter subdivisions getting put up in this town has made it hard for us. For us, this home is for generations, not just a cool place to live. The proposed cottages of Banner Farm Road were the last straw. Banner Farm Road cannot withstand much more traffic than the existing school traffic, much less a new 32-home subdivision. We all know the family that farmed that land. The Ropers were good people, and they would be disgraced and shamed to think their family land was being made into houses for people who don't even respect the area and what it means to us natives. Please take this into consideration while you are looking over the plans. There are dozens of people that would stand right behind me if you'd like to hear more testimonies. Thank you for your time, Lindsay Crawford. That's all I have.
And thank you, Lindsay, if you're listening, for taking the time to submit that. As you know, this particular development is allowed by right in this particular zoning district. And as long as this development fulfills all of our ordinance recommendations, then we're going to move forward. So I'd like to entertain a motion if anyone would like to do that. Otherwise, I'm happy to do it myself.
I would make that motion based on the recommendation on the second page of our packet tonight. Approval of the cottages at Roper Farm Development Plan with the conditions that they approve erosion and sediment control permit and approved section 404 USACE permit be provided to the town along with a preliminary subdivision plot that reflects the development plan and a revised development plan that addresses minor stormwater review comments. I'd make that motion.
Is there a second? We have a second by Mr. Oliver. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that is a unanimous approval. And I would like to say I appreciate you guys having the extensive paperwork that you brought this time. It was a lot to read, but I'd rather have more to read than very little to read. So I do appreciate that. Okay, so moving on to additional items, do we have anything additional that we need to discuss tonight?
None from me.
None.
None for me.
Any updates from council that we need to be aware of? I appreciate our council members sitting in with us tonight.
I guess I'll just provide an update that the conditional zoning is going before town council for a public hearing at their meeting next week on January 13th. So that's something this board approved that's moving forward in the process. So if you're interested, feel free to listen in.
Mike, just a question. Some time ago, we had some people appear before us talking about a subdivision, I believe on Jeffers Road. Have we heard anything more on that?
Oh, that's right, the preliminary presentation. From my understanding, they're still working through a few more final steps before applying, but are still intending to apply. I'm usually in touch with them about once a month, just to touch base, so it should still be coming forward. Mhm.
I've got a quick, was that going to be senior living? I saw an advertisement yesterday, something about senior living on Jeffers Farm.
Not for the multifamily development that's being proposed. It's possible that could be for the legacy, which is a mixed care senior. I don't know how to quantify it, but facility basically on Jeffers Road that includes everything from single family homes to townhomes to independent living in a main building to dependent care.
What is the status of the legacy?
I believe the legacy, and I think this is in regards to their financing requirements, they have to pre-sell a certain number of units, if you will. I believe they're closing towards that target. Daniel and I went over there and met with their leadership and some of their engineers. It was probably last summer. So the last I know is that they're getting close to those targets and they're looking to move forward, but it will probably be, maybe another year or two, just throwing out a number.
Any idea of the opening date of the Circle K? People ask me all the time and I'm like, I don't know what to tell them. Yeah, I saw that.
I do not know. I wondered if maybe they just have some of those numbers on back order in the sign. So I don't know. They've been very eager to move forward. And so we did our final inspection and give them their CO very quickly. Whatever they're doing now is just final stuff on their end.
Right. Anything additional?
Can I take just a second to talk traffic studies real quick?
Absolutely. Please do.
And give me the sign if I'm talking too much. Tell me to shut up. But if we adopt as a town a requirement for traffic studies, and we choose a number like say 100 trips in a peak hour, if we look at this traffic study, this would not be required. This one would not be required. Of course, I lost my place here, but when we look at the trip generation for this, it comes in way under 100. But then again, what did this traffic study tell us? Nothing's required because the impact is relatively small. When we're looking at adding, and I know every additional car is an additional car and it does add a certain amount of delay, but numbers below say 100 could be oh, I hear myself. I don't like my voice. Anyway, 28 cars in a peak hour. That's about 1 every 2 minutes. Does that really impact the road enough to require that level of study? So 34 trips in a PM peak hour. So that's just something to think about. If we adopt a number that is say 100 trips in a peak hour for any development whatsoever, then this would not require a traffic study. This particular 32 homes would not. One thing that's happened since this study was done is there's a new generation, just like every year there's a new textbook out there. There's a new edition of the trip generation manual, which has actually lowered the rates a little bit. So I'm seeing that in some of the studies I'm working on around the state. Instead of 364 trips in a day, it may be 350, 340, and I don't remember the exact number. So just something to think about. I would like to see anything that has a certain amount of trips. I think that would be open to us to determine and then council if they agree, or could even set whatever number they feel comfortable with. So questions?
Jeff, how low is reasonable?
It's a great question. 75 possibly. Now Buncombe County, their number is based on the number of units. So 75 or more homes, apartments, townhouses, whatever, that requires a traffic study. City of Asheville is 100. There are other towns out there that may say 1,000 per day. Take about 10% of that and you'll get the peak hour volume. So if you have 1,000, you're going to have 100 in the peak hour. So we're saying the same thing. Don't really address trucks. Nobody that I know of has a requirement based on trucks. How many? If we did that, would it be 25 trucks in a peak hour? Because trucks, that's a lot more of an impact than a car, right? If you come up to Banner Farm Road and you're behind an 18-wheeler, get your book out. Read a few
Sometimes
chapters.
Turning is a real challenge.
Yes, sir. That's right. So is 100 in a peak hour a good number? Is 75? When we go to make our recommendation to council, what do we think is a good idea? I'll be glad to help. I can provide additional information.
How would a stoplight, getting a stoplight? at that intersection? How would that-
That's a great
the-
question.
Is that state?
Yes, sir, and it's already warranted. And if I remember correctly, the state has, they have a plan, it's just getting it funded. And so what they do is they have an unfunded needs list. And as funding comes available, they take the projects based on priority, and traffic volumes are going to help with that priority, the more volumes. And for us to require a development like this to put in a traffic signal, it's a pretty hefty expense for a small development. But if this were 320 homes, then it might, the only way to make that intersection work may be with a traffic signal, which the developer could be asked under certain circumstances to fund that, or they may want to. I've had a couple of studies where the developer's like, oh, we need a signal. Nobody will want to live here if we don't have a signal. And so sure enough, if it meets traffic signal warrants, you don't want one if it doesn't meet warrants. But if it does, then they install that and turn lanes, et cetera. There's a good question someone asked about turn lanes. Into this development, it does not appear to meet the warrants for turn lanes into the development, but there may be one. Again, if it were 320 homes, it would. So, any questions? Don't let me bore you to death with this.
Mike, could you remind everyone currently in Mills River what requires a traffic impact analysis?
It's any major residential subdivision. So that's any subdivision of 12 lots or more. So you could have a 14 home subdivision that would require a TIA.
But you could have a business that would bring in 500 trips in a peak. Like if I was selling cat sweaters,
Yeah.
and people were flocking to my door, then naturally, that would not require a traffic study.
Or if we, or if we have a warehouse that employs, we don't know, 50, 100 people plus tractor trailers. How many trips
That's right.
per day is that? So I really feel like at some point we need to include our commercial businesses in this, because right now they're completely excluded from requiring.
And that's where the minimum, the threshold number could come in
Right.
and say, you're gonna create 75, you're gonna create 100 trips in the peak hour. So we know, we can say pretty confidently that 32 homes is not gonna create 75 trips in the peak hour, but maybe 70 homes would. And so is a 70 home subdivision a good number to look at someone actually studying the intersections around?
This may be an offline discussion if it's too complicated, but how do you come up with that original number that trips the threshold if there's no TIA?
That's a great question. So what would happen is that someone would come in and say, I want to build a development, 47 homes. So we could either have a standard sheet that is updated every time the new manual comes out, and it shows trigger threshold, trip generation thresholds. I had one at the city of Ashland. Pull that out, looks, oh, yeah, traffic steady, or nope, it's not enough. So that could do, you could do that, or you call me and I'll look it up. Or you could say to the person, to the developer, show me your trip generation. And then they would engage a traffic engineer to run the numbers, or a professional engineer that can give that. So good question.
Is there usually a standard assumed trips per day per household?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks. Great question. And it's somewhere around 10.
Okay.
And that includes deliveries, mail. That includes me forgetting something when I get halfway down the road and going back. You know, that's over. And it's a nationwide, it's studied across the US. And it's really pretty accurate, believe it or not. So it's not based on one home with 2 adults, 2 parents, and 2 adult children having 4 cars. Well, that's averaged out with the home next to them that has 2 cars or maybe 1 car. And it includes all that. So 32 homes, it's pretty accurate. 320 homes, it's even more accurate because it's averaged out a little better. Oh, this is fun. I get to talk traffic. This is all right.
So my question to you would be what, we've talked about this before, and every time there is interest in doing this, and it's something that I feel like is relevant. I know Jeff feels like is relevant. And, you know, I don't want to keep postponing and postponing and postponing and then miss commercial development or other development that this needs to take place with. So what steps do we need to start with to get something on the books?
The good old text amendment. So, I mean,
Okay.
if you're ready, or if you want to, I mean, we could schedule on the next agenda to have a more formal discussion about this if you'd like. And at the end of that, you know, if you want to move forward, you could direct me, just like we did with the public notice procedures for major subdivisions, direct me to draft a text amendment or draft language to bring back before you, where I would comb through the ordinance and basically bring out the sections you feel a TIA would be warranted or where that language would be needed.
Looking towards next month at this point, I know it's unpredictable, but do we appear to have a full agenda for our next meeting?
I believe there will be another major subdivision before this board in the February meeting.
Okay. So if everyone is willing, I would like for us to put that on the agenda for our next meeting, just to kind of, you know, and I would just ask all of you guys to kind of pull your thoughts together and be thinking about what you would like to be included, some of the key talking points that we could discuss a little bit further, and then maybe give you some direction after
Great.
that.
For sure.
And if you'd like, I can send you the list I had when I was at Asheville of the different uses that would generate 100 trips in a peak hour.
That'd be great. And I'd be happy to include any of those materials in the staff report. Yeah.
I do have Buncombe County, and I have a couple of other towns that I looked for. So
Okay, anything else anybody wants to chat about tonight?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second by Cheryl. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? This meeting is officially adjourned. See you next month.